We live in an age that worships excess. More information, more speed, more status, more productivity, more pressure, more visibility, more urgency, more noise. We are constantly told that a meaningful life is built through accumulation. More achievements, more possessions, more recognition, more stimulation. Yet beneath this restless promise lies a painful contradiction. The more we accumulate outwardly, the less we seem to possess ourselves inwardly. Our minds are crowded, our attention is fractured, and our inner life has become an open corridor through which every trend, every fear, every algorithm, and every outside demand is free to pass. What many people experience today is not abundance, but exhaustion. Not just physical tiredness, but a more intimate fatigue of the soul. The exhaustion of having too much entering the mind and too little being examined. This is where mental minimalism begins. Not as an aesthetic, not as a fashionable lifestyle, and certainly not as another productivity trick, but as an act of inner self-defense. And few thinkers understood this better than Epicurus, the philosopher so often misunderstood and so urgently needed in the modern world. Epicurus has been unfairly simplified for centuries. Many people hear his name and immediately imagine comfort, indulgence, retreat, or some lazy philosophy of pleasure. But this is a distortion so common that it has almost become cultural folklore. Epicurus was not the philosopher of excess. He was the philosopher of intelligent reduction. He did not teach people to chase more pleasure, but to eliminate the forms of pain, fear, and illusion that make peace impossible. He was less interested in indulgence than in freedom. He believed that a good life does not require luxury, applause, or grand conquest. It requires clarity. It requires learning the difference between what is essential and what is parasitic, between what truly nourishes the soul and what merely agitates it. In this sense, Epicurus was an early master of mental minimalism. He understood that suffering is often made heavier not by reality itself, but by the unnecessary desires and imaginary fears that we allow to occupy our minds. His philosophy is not about living with less because less is morally superior. It is about living with less confusion, less dependence, and less internal chaos so that peace becomes possible again. One of Epicurus's most powerful insights was his distinction between different kinds of desire. Some desires, he said, are natural and necessary: food, rest, shelter, friendship, freedom from pain. Some are natural but unnecessary: luxury, refinement, and excess comfort. Others are neither natural nor necessary: fame, domination, limitless wealth, social immortality, the endless hunger to be admired. That distinction remains revolutionary because it exposes the structure of modern suffering. Our age trains people to experience every desire as urgent, every impulse as meaningful, every craving as an identity. It teaches us to confuse stimulation with fulfillment and visibility with worth. But Epicurus cuts through this inflation with radical sobriety. He reminds us that peace does not come from satisfying everything we want. It comes from understanding which wants deserve our loyalty and which are quietly destroying us. The modern mind is exhausted because it is trying to obey too many false desires at once. It carries ambitions it did not consciously choose, fears it did not create, and standards it inherited from the market, the crowd, and the machinery of comparison. Mental minimalism begins the moment we question all of that and ask, which of these burdens are truly mine? This is why minimalism, in the deepest sense, is not first about objects. A person may own very little and still live with a mind full of clutter. They may have a simple room and yet be internally overcrowded by comparison, anxiety, performance, and noise. Mental minimalism is the discipline of reducing psychic entanglement. It is the art of examining the traffic of thoughts, desires, fears, and narratives passing through consciousness and refusing to grant equal importance to all of them. Epicurus offers a sharp criterion for this. If a thought does not help you live more wisely, calmly, and freely, then its place in your mind must be questioned. Not every thought deserves a throne. Not every fear deserves devotion. Not every desire deserves pursuit. This is deeply liberating because it means that the mind can be curated. It does not have to remain an occupied territory. In a culture that profits from mental overload, choosing what deserves entry into your inner life becomes a form of resistance. The world tells you to open yourself to everything. Epicurus tells you to become selective. and perhaps that is one of the most radical lessons a modern person can learn. At the center of Epicurean philosophy is the idea of ataraxia, a state of tranquil freedom from mental disturbance. This is not numbness, passivity, or emotional withdrawal. It is the quiet power of a mind no longer bullied by needless agitation. A person living in ataraxia is not cut off from life. They are finally able to experience life without being distorted by constant inner turbulence. They can enjoy simple pleasures without becoming enslaved to them. They can face uncertainty without feeding it with endless imagination. They can move among others without making approval the foundation of their worth. Today, this idea sounds almost rebellious because modern culture depends on agitation. Entire industries survive by keeping people dissatisfied, insecure, reactive, and hungry for more. The disturbed mind is profitable. The tranquil mind is much harder to manipulate. A person who knows what is enough becomes inconvenient to a system built on endless escalation. This is why mental minimalism is not merely private self-care. It has a quiet philosophical courage to it. To reduce desire, simplify need, and reclaim calm is to withdraw consent from a civilization that constantly tries to monetize your unrest. Epicurus also understood that fear is one of the great engines of human suffering. In particular, he focused on two ultimate fears: the fear of divine punishment and the fear of death. Whether we read these literally or symbolically today, the insight remains profound. Human beings often live under invisible tyrannies of imagination. They feel judged by the universe, haunted by future catastrophe, and trapped in anxieties about things they cannot control, fully know, or meaningfully rehearse. Epicurus wanted to free people from those mental prisons. His famous argument that death is nothing to us was not just an abstract statement about mortality. It was a method for cutting through obsessive dread. Much of human pain comes from repeatedly giving emotional energy to what cannot yet be lived. We mentally suffer futures that are not present, punishments that are not occurring, humiliations that exist only in fantasy. The modern world has multiplied these fears. Now we are told to fear irrelevance, obscurity, missing out, being ordinary, not keeping up, aging without spectacle, living without public recognition. These fears may wear modern clothes, but they are ancient in essence. They are old anxieties amplified by digital machinery. Epicurus would immediately recognize the disease, a civilization in which attention has become vulnerable to every manufactured threat and every symbolic insecurity. What makes Epicurus so valuable is that he offers not just diagnosis, but proportion. He teaches simplicity not as deprivation, but as strength. The fewer external conditions you require in order to feel whole, the less easily you can be manipulated by disappointment, status games, and illusion. A person who has learned to enjoy enough is freer than a person who has access to everything but cannot be satisfied by any of it. This does not mean romanticizing hardship or pretending beauty does not matter. It means refusing to confuse luxury with necessity. It means recovering a sense of scale. Epicurus knew that when the mind is trained to depend on complexity for peace, it becomes fragile. But the person who can enjoy friendship thought, a modest meal, a quiet evening, and freedom from torment possesses a form of sovereign wealth. They are lighter. They are less psychologically blackmailed by circumstance. And this is where friendship and solitude both become essential. Epicurus valued friendship as one of the highest goods because genuine friendship allows the self to rest. It is one of the few spaces where one does not have to constantly prove, perform, or negotiate worth. At the same time, chosen solitude is necessary because without distance from noise, the mind cannot hear itself clearly. Solitude becomes a kind of inner hygiene, a way of clearing out borrowed thoughts and recovering the difference between need and compulsion. What makes all of this so powerful is that Epicurus was practical. He did not want philosophy to impress. He wanted it to heal. His thought was meant to reduce suffering in real life. That is why mental minimalism must become a discipline, not just an idea. It means becoming less available to manufactured chaos. It means noticing which inputs poison your calm and reducing them. It means questioning whether every ambition deserves your loyalty. It means separating concern from obsession, pleasure from dependence, information from overload, and connection from performance. In practice, that may mean limiting social media, refusing pointless debate, simplifying commitments, protecting silence, choosing fewer but deeper goals, and relearning how to enjoy ordinary life without turning every experience into content, currency, or comparison. Freedom will not arrive all at once. The mind does not become simple overnight. We have rehearsed noise for too long. But the path begins modestly. One unnecessary desire removed, one borrowed fear rejected, 1 hour of silence protected, one false urgency denied entry. And that is why Epicurus still matters. He reminds us that the good life is not hidden behind grandeur, spectacle, or endless self-expansion. It begins when needless turmoil ends. It begins when we realize that peace is not having everything. Peace is no longer needing what disturbs the soul. In an age addicted to more, that may be the bravest form of freedom left. This is the secret to an easy life.